Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 2006 animated film Monster House. Now, Monster House is one of those films that over the years, it's become a bit of a cult classic, especially for fans of animation, because it made a profit, but because of the budget being so high, which was like $75 million, which was actually quite a bit for a animated film in 2006. It didn't make as much of a profit for the studio as I think they probably would have wanted it to. So it became more of a success on home video and through rentals. And a lot of people have grown up with the film and they're really big fans of it. But I didn't really grow up with this movie. I think I saw it maybe one other time, prior to rewatching this, and I liked it. I thought it was pretty good, but I definitely wouldn't say that I loved it or I thought it was an amazing film by any means. I think it had some amazing animation in it, but I don't necessarily feel that it's an amazing film overall, but I did enjoy it. I did like the film. And before I get around to sharing even more of my thoughts on Monster House, I would like to give a special shout out to Bronson for requesting this review. And if there's another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal or to my Patreon. Link to both is in the video description down below, and I will try to get your request as soon as I possibly can. Now, Monster House is directed by Gil Kenan, and this was his first film. He had done a short film prior to Monster House, but nothing that substantial when it comes to feature film work. And I think for a first time out, it was pretty good. I thought he did a good job directing this, especially considering the fact that it was an extra difficult shoot because of the usage of motion capture, because this wasn't just your typical production where they shot the film entirely inside of a computer and everything was all done in that way, and it was a film that didn't even have any real actors, and it was all computer models and so on and so forth. This was a motion capture film, so it utilized the same techniques that Robert Zemeckis used for the Polar Express. And so what you had was a actual group of real actors who were acting in real time, and that was then incorporated into the animation. And that can be kind of clunky. That can be kind of off if you don't necessarily have the best director who's handling all of that. And I think Gil did a good job in terms of handling all the difficult uh, instances involving the film's production. And I think he just did a good job in terms of really giving the film some great energy. It has some really energetic, lively direction, especially when it comes to the scenes with the monster house, when it's trying to eat people or when it's uh, doing its thing. And there's a lot of variety in terms of the shot selection, not just camera angles, but also wide shots and different sorts of pans and zooms and some really nice looking shots that really do emphasize the 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 really unique ways that the realm of animation can really showcase the camera, because there are far less limitations in the realm of animation as there is in live action. So you can do kinds of shots in terms of utilizing the camera in different positions and different places that would be really difficult to pull off in live action. And so that enables a movie to have this very ambitious and honestly risky camera work that really does add a lot to the film, directing wise. And the animation, at times, the age of the CGI does show, but it's not anything that has to do with Gil Kenan's work as the director. That's just the limitations of the animation at the time. And there's a lot of bits in this, though, that I think still stand up pretty well in terms of the animation. And in large part, it's due to how Gil framed these shots and how he ultimately executed them. Now, the film is written by a trio of writers. You've got Dan Harmon, Rob Schrab, and Pamela Petler. And I think the screenplay is pretty good. I don't think it's a great script, but I definitely do feel that it's a good screenplay. For one, the Monster House elements of the screenplay are really well done. It's very creative, it's very ingenious. The various different ways that the Monster House presents itself throughout the story, throughout the script, is a lot of fun. Like the house has a lot of personality, and it not only has a really unique look on the outside with, the rug being the tongue, and the railing on the front porch being teeth, and the windows being the eyes, but you also have the interior of the house being something rather interesting as well in terms of the design, because the interior of the house is almost like it's the inside of a mouth. You have a uvula, you have a throat with saliva, and you also have other parts of the body. You have the heart, which is the furnace, and these other different parts of the house that are in a lot of ways like a human body. So I think that is really cool and different. I like that the house has various different ways that it's able to incapacitate people or suck things into it. Uh, it sucks things into the house through the lawn, or it grabs people with the rug, or it manipulates people by tricking them to come into the house, or it'll actually create stuff that'll pop out and grab people and try to pull them in, or it'll use the trees that are right next to the house to grab people. So there's a lot of things involving the house that are really uh, entertaining and really enjoyable about Monster House. And I also really like that the screenplay doesn't just focus on like one appearance for the house. Like there's multiple different appearances of the house in terms of the way that it looks. Starts out one way, then as the house gets more and more angry and ambulatory because it actually starts walking around with the trees, it starts to have this even more fearsome and monstrous appearance to it. And then once the house gets completely demolished and then reassembles itself in the finale, it just doesn't even look like anything than just some kind of just weird mishmash of different house parts. And it's even more nightmarish and monstrous than before. So I really like that aspect of Monster House. That's definitely the biggest selling point to me, is the stuff with the Monster House itself, which is exactly what you are looking for out of a screenplay for something called Monster House. But I do feel that there are some other elements of it that work just as well. For one, I think the character arc and the overall way that Mr. Nebercracker is written is really great. Because this is a great example of not judging a book by its cover, not making assumptions about people. Because I was making some pretty harsh judgments on this character and early on. I was like, man, what an asshole. Like, what a grumpy old douchebag. The guy's like breaking kids' tricycles, yelling at people to get off their lawn, get off his lawn, just being an absolute jerk of the highest order. Like, just being just a horrible person. And so when he supposedly collapses of a heart attack, you don't really feel anything. You feel apathy because they're like, well, it serves you right for being such a mean, miserable man who's just constantly taking your issues and your problems in life out on other people. But as the script and the story continues to unfold and play out, you learn more and more about Mr. Nevercracker. And then by the end of the movie, he's actually a bit of a heroic figure, and he's not at all who you might initially think that he is based on his first appearance in the story, because now you get the nuance, now you get the backstory, now you know why he's acting the way that he's acting. And it's not just because he's a mean person, it's because he's forced to do this to save people, to protect kids and protect other people in the neighborhood from his house. Because if he doesn't do that, if he doesn't be this demonstrative, if he doesn't be this obvious in terms of his behavior, it's not going to get the point across. So people are going to continue to try to, trick or treat at the house or play on the lawn or do all this other stuff. So he has to be somebody he's actually not in order to help people. And he's trapped. He's trapped because of what's going on with the house and the spirit that resides within it and his connection to that spirit. And he doesn't want to fully let that connection go because it's one of the only connections he has left in his life. And once he finds some new connections with these kids, DJ, Chowder, and Jenny, then he's able to finally get the courage and have the ability to let that spirit go and to let the house go and be free. And I just love I love his arc. I think it's a great arc. It really shows that there's a lot more complexities to people than you might initially think. And it's just a really good bit of writing when it comes to a singular character. Now the other characters are fine as well. Like DJ, there's a lot of stuff with him where he's shy and withdrawn and not confident in himself or his abilities. But throughout the film, he conquers his fears and becomes more confident. So you have that in terms of an arc. You have something involving Chowder, which is similar, but it's so similar that honestly it's not that much of an arc because it just feels like it's copied and pasted when it comes to the arc that DJ is having. Jenny, I think what the writers are trying to do with her is having her be less, I wouldn't say stuck up, but it's similar to that, being willing to be more carefree, to take more risks, stuff like that. Think outside of the box, do more things that aren't necessarily as orderly as she's used to, get her hands dirty, so to speak, that kind of stuff. But none of those characters really have arcs that are as interesting as the arc of Mr. Nevercracker. You also have some other characters like Z, DJ's babysitter, some police officers. You got Skull and Bones. But those characters are very one note in terms of their writing. Z, though, the way that she was written, I think is a character that had potential, but it was never fully realized because she never really got that involved. And I wish she did because I liked that character. She's a cool goth girl who had a fun personality, had her own sense of charm, to her. It would have been cool to have seen her interact and react to the monster house with all the other kids when they get trapped inside and they have to try to find a way out. But instead, that character was just basically not really much of anything. Was just a babysitter who says a few fun little lines here and there and then drives off at one point, really, and is honestly never really seen again. So that was disappointing. I would have liked to have seen more of her character. The stuff involving Constance, Nevercracker, I like that as well. Um, because it provides a different sort of take on a possession film. So, okay, the house itself is possessed, but it's not possessed by a demon. It's not possessed by what you might initially think. It's possessed by a vengeful spirit, but by a vengeful spirit that isn't like a serial killer or isn't a murderer or anything. It's this overweight, morbidly obese woman who was saved from the circus by Mr. Nevercracker, and she's damaged. She's got problems. She's got issues due to her being treated as a freak for her whole life. And Nevercracker loves her and she loves him back, but she doesn't know how to really react or to behave around other people. And when people are making fun of her for her weight or throwing things at her, she just has this angry, just absolutely violent reaction to those type of acts. And that's what leads to her dying tragically and having the house built over her. And so she's directly tied to the house, which I like that aspect of the script. And I like that there was nuances with her character too, and there wasn't a lot of depth with her character, but there was enough that you're like, okay, you can really understand the emotion. You can understand why she behaves the way that she does, and why she, as the house, does the things that she does because she doesn't really know any other way to handle her emotions. She just lashes out. And then it becomes more of a tragic thing, not necessarily an instance of somebody just being uh, a bad person. So Constance was another instance involving a character that was, you know, more nuanced than you might necessarily think. And I like the moment at the end when Mr. Nevercracker has this dance, this one last dance with Constance before she goes uh, into heaven. And her spirit, goes up into the sky. And there was a nice little sweet moment between uh, the Nevercrackers, which I really did like. But Constance, because of her mood swings, like she's a pretty intimidating house. I mean, she really is. Like this house, it'll take no prisoners. It'll wreck your shit. And so I really like that too about the screenplay is that it's not afraid to go big when it comes to the monster house and stuff that the house does and the carnage that the house causes. And I mean, even by the end of the movie, the house gets blown up with dynamite. So there's a lot of action in this script too that is genuinely thrilling. And you would think, okay, you're listing a lot of things about it that are good, if not great. Why do you think it's not a great script? Well, it's because there's one character in particular that I don't like, and I feel that as a comedy, it's lacking. So the thrills and the chills for a film for a younger audience, it works. When it comes to the comedy, it's not really that funny. I think it honestly could have been way funnier than it actually is. there's a few moments here and there that might make you chuckle or smirk, but nothing that's like laugh out loud hilarious like some of the banter from Mouth and the Goonies or anything like that. And you can tell that they're trying to evoke some kind of Goonies Monster Squad sort of vibe anyway. And those movies have multiple memorable lines of dialogue and multiple moments that are really genuinely funny. There really aren't a lot of that uh moments in Monster House. And also one character in particular. I do not like Chowder. I don't like this character. It's like the writing, the screenplay and the 3 writers, they just assume that you're gonna like this character because he's friends with the main character and DJ, but he's obnoxious, he's whiny. The only reason why he agrees to help his friend with the monster house initially is if his friend agrees to go trick or treating with him. So it's not one of those things where, "Oh, I'm gonna do it because you're my friend, you're my bro, you're my pal." No, it has to be some sort of extra incentive. And there's just a lot of stuff with this character where he does not really come across as a good friend. He comes across as a kind of friend back when you were a kid who you went to their house a few times and you were friends, but you were never really that close. And you were just as close to being enemies as you were friends. That's kind of the vibe that I got with this character. And he's supposed to be comic relief, and he's not funny most of the time, so that doesn't help either. And he's very whiny and just annoying. And there's this whole thing where he's acting all jealous over Jenny, and that wasn't a good look for him either. And yeah, DJ had his moments too with that whole thing, but that really looked bad for Chowder. And yeah, there's a moment at the end where, he's willing to sacrifice himself to save his friends and gets into the bulldozer. It wasn't a bulldozer, it was like an excavator or something, some kind of construction equipment. And he gets in that and distracts the house and drags the house down the hill. And he has his moments, but I mean, I never really felt that the kid was someone who learned a lesson or had any sort of real arc or anything. Like, it's not one of those things where, "Oh, I'm sorry, man." Like, I didn't really remember moments like that, and if they did happen, they didn't really resonate that strongly when it comes to him learning a lesson or apologizing to his friend in terms of how just really bad and awful he was acting for throughout a good chunk of this adventure. Like, it's just one of those things where, yeah, I don't really feel that character is very well written, and he's in it a decent amount, and I don't really care for that character that much. So, you know, when it's one of your main characters and they don't really work with you and they don't really click that well, then that is kind of an issue. It's not a big issue because I still think DJ and Jenny and the 2 cop characters when they are there, and Z and Mr. Nevercracker, those characters are strong enough to kind of make it work. And there are other elements that are also interesting and different enough that do help kind of alleviate some of the issues with Chowder or with the comedy and how relatively unfunny most of it is. But there's a genuine heart to it that also goes a long way, which I really did appreciate. Like, I really love the ending where Nevercracker, instead of handing out treats to people on Halloween, he's handing out all these items and these toys and things that were trapped inside the house after all these years. So he puts back together the tricycle that he broke in front of that little girl early on in the movie and gives it back to her. So I really like that. That was very sweet and very charming. I like that Nevercracker has some friends now. He can fully move on from Constance. And I also like the fact that, you know what? It actually doesn't have a body count. Like, everybody who was taken by the house, they come out of, the ruins of the house, at the end of the movie. That's a different sort of take too, that's a little unexpected. Um, and I like that, okay, you don't have a body count, you don't really have anybody who gets that hurt or harmed by the house, but it still manages to have moments of suspense because of the strength of the script in terms of the monster house sequences. The monster house sequences are still pretty tense, and definitely have some moments where it might make you bite your nails a little bit, and that's because of the strength of the script when it comes to those scenes. So, yeah, the screenplay I don't think is completely totally great for the reasons that I mentioned multiple times already. But I do think it's a good script, and I do think when it comes to the main selling point, it really does nail that for the most part. Now, the cast, it's all right. I think Mitchell Musso, Sam Lerner, and Spencer Locke, who voiced Dustin, Chowder, and Jenny, they all do decent, adequate enough jobs when it comes to their voiceover work and the motion capture acting. I'm not really gonna be too hard on Sam Lerner because it's not his fault that his character isn't that likable and is kind of annoying. Because he's just honestly taking what he's been given. But Mitchell Musso was just kind of bland as DJ. Honestly, just kind of sounded like a million other voice actors or kids. Uh, Spencer Locke as Jenny is kind of more the same. Steve Buscemi, though, was fantastic. He was really great as Nevercracker. It's honestly one of my favorite performances by Steve, actually, because of the different nuances and layers of it. He does a great job playing the angry old man in the beginning who's just a jerk that you really hate. And so much so to the point where you don't even necessarily recognize that it's Buscemi right away. But then when he shows the lighter side, then you start to see it. And then it also shows Buscemi's strengths as an actor. Kathleen Turner was, it was nice to see her voice a character. She voiced Constance, but she doesn't really have a whole lot of dialogue, doesn't have a whole lot to do. But, she does the best that she can with what she's given when it comes to the script. Maggie Gyllenhaal, I liked her performance a lot as Z. It's kind of, I would probably say it's the coolest she's ever been. And I felt that it was just a fun role for her. And you could tell that she was enjoying playing a character that was very much against type. Kevin James and Nick Cannon as the cops, they were good too. I felt that the two of them had some decent chemistry, and Nick Cannon was actually one of the funniest performers in the entire cast, surprisingly enough. Jon Heder is Skull, who's the friend of DJ's, who is like works at a pizza place and is like a gamer. He was fine. Just seemed like he was just kind of doing the same role that he's done a million times, though. Jason Lee as Bones, Z's ex-boyfriend. He played a good douche, but Jason Lee is pretty good at playing those kind of characters. Fred Willard and Catherine O'Hara were uh, a good pair as always as DJ's parents. It was fun to see them in animated form and to see them work in the realm of animation because they're just a great pair. I mean, they work together in multiple Christopher Guest documentaries, and they're just really a lot of fun when it comes to the dynamic between the two of them. And it still works here when it comes to it being an animation instead of live action. And the other technical aspects of the film are pretty good as well. The cinematography by Xavier Perez Grobet, the editing by Fabian Raleigh and Adam P. Scott, the music by Douglas Pipes. I don't think it was like pathetic or anything, but I don't think it was amazing either. It was just kind of there. Like, the score wasn't anything that I felt was, like, really that memorable or that iconic. It worked for the film, for what the film was trying to do most of the time, but it was just kind of in the background, and not a lot about it really stood out that much. And I think it is a pretty well-paced film, for sure. I mean, it's only, like, 91 minutes, and that's without the end credits. Um, I mean, that's with the end credits. With the end credits, it's, like, 91 minutes. Without the end credits, it's even shorter. And the animation quality, I think for the time, it's good, especially the Monster House. There are times, though, where you get a bit of this uncanny valley sort of stuff, and this sort of thing going on where they're trying to be, you can tell they're trying to be like stop motion, but with CGI and not actual stop motion. And so there are some moments where the animation can be a bit janky because of that. Especially when it comes to some of the hair animation or some of the other things that are really showing the limitations of the CGI at the time. So there are some moments where the animation, I admit, can be a little dated. But for the most part, though, I think it's pretty good. It's vibrant, definitely has a lot of color to it. It definitely has a lot of life to it. It's definitely not anything that's lifeless or that stodgy. Um, Easily could have been. It could have been even more stiff, but it really wasn't. So it had a good fluidity to it. The animation was rather fluid, flowed well. Um, and I mean, I think it's honestly aged better animation wise than something like the Polar Express or Beowulf because of the fact that it is trying to emulate stop motion. So it already has this kind of animated look to it, like James and the Giant Peach kind of stuff. So it doesn't have this whole sort of uncanny valley, oh, we're trying to look like real people sort of thing. So it has that sort of personality when it comes to the appearance of the animation. But there are a few moments though where you get a bit of that uncanny valley stuff, but not a lot of it. So yeah, I mean, I would say if you want to switch some things up for your Halloween playlist and you want to watch something a little bit different than the usual fare, this is definitely one I think you could put on and enjoy. Especially if you have kids. This is definitely one to watch with your kids. I think there's enough there for adults to enjoy it and find it to be interesting enough, and also enough there for kids to be entertained with it. So I definitely do think it's a really solid family uh, horror. It's definitely a good gateway movie for younger audiences to get into the horror genre. But anyway, I really don't know what else to say about Monster House except for thanks for watching my review, and until next time, I'll see you later. See ya.